the idea of this roundtable works on the observation that the development of systems capable of training professionals with specific skills has been a growing interest in the market, in the didactic market, but also from the labor market. But as well, we have seen the need for a global vision on the theme of fashion and technology. So the perspective that we want to assume in this roundtable is the ones of future scenarios. So to trace forthcoming directions in the field of fashion tech from different perspectives. In particular, the idea of the roundtable is to share different perspectives on the relationship between fashion, human body, and digital technologies. The other point that we will discuss is the changes and challenges for the fashion sector, which are related to market products and use, consumer, and the environment, of course, and also the relationship between functionality and expressiveness, and between autonomous and interactive objects and control interactive objects. So it's going to be a very rich discussion with very many speakers coming from the field. So the discussion is an open discussion with our guests. We invite all our guests to switch on their camera. And of course, the audience to interact, raising your hand or writing questions and comments in the chat. So we'll try to take care of both the dynamics. So I am very pleased to welcome our speakers, Karina Buxman, international digital expert and Gen YZ consultant, co-founder at Trashy Muse. Amrit Dietmar, digital pioneer, head of investor and public relations, co-founder at Trashy Muse. Manuel Mucillo, product designer and Space Human project co-author. Valentina Sumini, research affiliate at MIT Media Lab and visiting professor at Politecnico di Milano. Irman Wikaksono, which is a PhD candidate at MIT Media Lab in responsive environments. Jasna Rokegem, founder of Jasna Rock, and which is the first fashion tech design lab in Belgium. Francesca Rosella, chief creative director and co-founder of Cute Circuit. Anouk Wipprecht, engineer, designer, and artist. Liam Young, founder of Tomorrow's Thoughts Today, co-founder of Unknown Fields Nomadic Studio and coordinator of Fiction Plus Entertainment at SIC ARC. So thank you very much. Sorry if I misspelled your name, guys. And I pass the mic to Livia and Susanna that will interact with our speakers and with the participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiara, and thank you to all our guests for joining us. We organized this roundtable starting from each of you. Then for sure we will have some open question. We will start with Francesca Rosella, co-founder of Cute Circuit. Francesca, can you hear us? I don't see you.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, yes, perfectly. So Francesca, welcome and thank you very much for joining us. As anticipated by Chiara, you are Chief Creative Director and co-founder of Cute Circuit. Since here we all are interested in fashion tech, probably all knows about Cute Circuit that was founded in 2004, and it was the first wearable technology fashion brand in the world. So you were really pioneer in this field. So I would leave you a few minutes to introduce yourself and your work, and then we will start with a few questions, and we really appreciate if also the other guests would interact in the discussion. We will read also the chat, so also if our participants participants have questions, we are very happy to listen to their thoughts.
Okay, hi, thank you so much for having me, Livia, and for inviting me today, and Chiara as well. It's really lovely to see all of you guys. I can see you. I don't know if you can see me or not.
We can. Now we can.
Okay, because when I logged in earlier, I was a bit confused. I didn't know where I was on the screen. And so basically, I mean, yeah, you're right. We started Qt Circuit in 2004, and really, it was a bit early. So I realized, like, every time when I started the company with my co-founder Ryan Gans, every time we told people, "Oh, we do wearable technology," people would look at us completely like, "What are you talking about? Wearable what?" People had absolutely no clue what we were about to do. And they didn't have like a sort of paradigm. Like now you see so many examples of wonderful work, like Anouk's, for example. And then like people are more conscious about the fact that there is this kind of wearable technology out there in the world. But back then there really was nothing else that could be similar. So trying to explain what we were doing was very difficult. And another thing that I thought was very interesting, I mean, now that you know so many of our products, like the dresses we designed for Katy Perry, our sound shirts for deaf people to let them feel music. I mean, we have so many different kinds of products. But one of the greatest challenges that we had to overcome when we started so early was to not only design products that felt good like normal clothes, but also invent materials that will make that possible. And this was absolutely the greatest challenge for us because, I mean, back then there really weren't like smart fabrics. There were no conductive ribbons. And I mean, we literally had to go and try to get really large manufacturing companies to help us create these new materials that we wanted to use in creating the garments, because definitely we didn't want to have wires inside the garment and make it feel like a little bit heavy. So we wanted to have everything stretched and comfortable and soft and like a normal garment. And so I remember one of the first things that we did was like finding a conductive thread. And this conductive thread that we found was actually not normally used as a thread, but actually was used as a rocket booster lining material that was just spun on bobbins, and it basically was used in kilometers and kilometers of it overlapping to line the rocket booster. And I'm like, okay, but did you notice that I remember saying to the manufacturer, did you notice that it looks really pretty because it's kind of golden and it would look great in an embroidery? And they were like, no, we didn't notice that. So it really like, it's sort of like trying to get materials from a field and then bring it into our field to make sure that we could create an interconnect between microelectronics and garments in a way that felt really smooth and very garment-like. And so that was like really, I think creating the materials was like one of the biggest challenges, and then also getting normal manufacturing companies, both from the fashion field and the electronics field, to actually understand why we were trying to create this kind of garments. And I mean, if some of you are not really familiar with our work, the things that we're trying to do with these wearable technologies is that we're trying to connect people. So, for example, from the first hug shirts, I mean, we created this garment because we sort of did a user testing session, and everybody say, oh, I wish I could hug my mom or my lover or my brother, and but they're far away, we cannot do that. Sort of very similar to this pandemic situation we have now, guys, right? And so we say, okay, how can we go about it? How can we create a garment that lets you express love over distance and lets you feel welcomed and connected? And so everything we've been doing, it's really like connecting people. And so it's not only trying to find a cool technological solution, but it's also all about why would people use this solution and why would they wear it. And I mean, we always think people would wear it because if I have something on my body, it's like really easy to carry it with me. I don't have to carry my phone, or I don't need to carry a camera, for example, but definitely I can just have like a garment on and then use this garment to sort of acquire superpowers and then let me connect with my friends that are far away. So that's like really one of the things we love to do is also about communications, trying to find the right form for the right function and choosing the right materials, making it look good, and but really just bringing people together.
This is how you decided to start, I mean, observing people and then having together digital technologies and fashion was the solution to this idea of connecting people, or you did a preliminary research to understand really the potential of having together fashion and technology?
Well, so one of the things that was really interesting, I'll tell you a little bit about how my co-founder and I met. We met in a research institute in northern Italy in 2001, and that was a research institute about interaction design. And one of the things that you could choose amongst was like there were three sort of research tracks that you could choose, and one of those was smart cities, and another one was I think something like about smart cities, smart homes, and smart bodies. And as I had a background in fashion design, I used to work at Valentino just a couple of years prior. And I was like, oh, I'm really interested in technology on the body and how having technology on the body can let you do something special. And then I met Ryan, and we started doing research together. And he comes from a background of anthropology, and so he was interested in how people express themselves through clothing. And so we sort of brought our interests together, because I mean, if you think about communication, actually 85% of communication is nonverbal. It's like you see how people move, what they're wearing, the expression on their face. And so even if you were not really listening to them, you would understand which mood they're on by how their face looks and how their posture looks. And so this is like one of the things that brought us to work together. And actually, yeah, the first thing we designed together was this hug shirt. And how we did that was to do a user session in which we put people in a room wearing white t-shirts and asking them to hug each other for a very long time, while Ryan and I had red markers and we proceeded to mark the position on everybody's hands, on everybody else's body. Some of these people got married by the end of this thing. But it was quite sort of an interesting experiment. So instead of doing like a brainstorming, we actually did a body storming. And we were doing like yesterday one episode of our live Friday show, and we were talking about user research. And we were mentioning this example to some students from Stanford actually. And we're like, you know, not all brainstormings are supposed to be just words or written explanations. I think some of these brainstormings could be physical, because I mean, if something goes on your body, then you might as well act out what's about to happen, what you think the interface is going to do for you. So it really, our work started from that kind of research. Like we are trained as interaction designers with backgrounds in cultural anthropology and fashion. And so we sort of bring all of these things together, rolled into one.
Yeah, and in 16 years, how this approach changed?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think like we always have like user testing and user research. And I mean, it's like we sort of never stop doing it, because every time we iterate on a product or we come up with a new idea, we always ask people to try it and tell us what they think. Like it's just like, I think it would be impossible to just come up with one product and then just say, yeah, that's how it is. And then all of a sudden, like you definitely start getting questions from people saying, sorry, couldn't you do this other thing? And so I think it's always better to just, you come up with a product, you ask people what they think, and then you can take some or all or just a few suggestions on board, and then just improve on what your initial thought process was. So for example, that's what we did when we went from hug shirts to sound shirts. So we transformed something that lets you hug your loved ones over distance to something that lets deaf people feel music through touch. And so we got onto this whole inclusivity and accessibility region, like this spectrum of design that usually is not very much touched upon. And so we designed the first iteration, and then we deployed it with the orchestras, and we had all these deaf people trying it, and then they started asking us, oh, can the actuation, the haptic actuation be stronger? Can there be more actuators because I want a stronger sensation? And so then we really took all these suggestions on board, put it in the second iteration, and then tested it and took more suggestions on board from that. And that's also how we went, like, during this pandemic, from having a product like the Soundshares that usually works with orchestras, and there is like these big live concerts that we used to do that got all cancelled, obviously, this summer. That's such a sad thing. And so we're like, oh, how do we bring that from a big orchestra arena setup into your home? And so we started creating this mobile version of the app, and then like we started like deploying the test app, and then people say, but can it both hug you and do music at the same time? We're like, yes. So there we went back and just integrated everything together. So I think it's really important to ask your like potential users what they think, and just take suggestions on board if they're really good suggestions, and at least you know what people are thinking, and you're able to improve your products as you go along.
Sure. In fact, my next question is about the market. Since you have the privilege to observe the market because you have consumers and you have a point of view on the market itself, how fashion tech is perceived by the market, and if based on your data, you feel that there's a specific geographic area interested in fashion tech?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Thank you. It's very interesting because we can see actually like the other, like if we do a business to business project like the big concerts, or if we sell business to consumer directly through our website, and we can really tell where people come from. And one of the things that is more interesting, it seems to me, that the early adopters are usually always the US, Germany, France, and you would usually think like Asia is like as being absolutely, yeah, super early adopters. Actually, sometimes it's a shy consumer that is always waiting for the US to step into it first and then just like follow along. And I thought it was very interesting because actually now that we sort of really explored the US market, now we're having lots of customers from Asia say, oh yeah, we love it. And so I think it's just like really comes together in the end. But I think like initially the interest was always the US, and Germany and France. Somehow they're really technologically advanced, very technologically literate, also very large corporations there. They're always really willing to experiment. Like, for example, when we did our collaboration with Chanel, they were just like, they gave us carte blanche. They say, yeah, you guys go ahead, you do your thing. And we're like, yes, thank you, we love you. And so just like they have that tradition in France, like even with the France Telecom, like in the early 90s, trying to create prototypes of luminous clothing. And I think they were already thinking along those tracks, you know. And so they're more willing to experiment. So yeah, I think definitely the market is like usually like as with every tech product, the US is huge, but I think Europe has like lots of hope. I would say Italy, I'm Italian, right? So, and you guys, but sometimes Italy is not as interested in this tech as much as you would think. However, the thing that is very interesting is that, like, for example, we manufacture in Italy. And I mean, it's just really great because, of course, I can speak with all the manufacturers and we really understand each other. I mean, when we manufactured for Chanel, we actually manufactured in Italy. So it was just really great. And the thing, one of the things that was the funniest is that when we first started the company, actually not in 2004, but in 2005, we were in Italy for 1 year. And they were like, oh my God, nobody is really interested in this year at all. And I remember we finally decided to move to the UK because we got a really great chance to get an office. actually free of charge. We were so happy. We got it like for 6 months and really got us started. And like as soon as we opened the door of the office in London, we started getting calls from Italy, from Telecom Italia, asking us to organize them a fashion show because they were so interested in fashion tech. And I'm like, we were literally around the corner from your office for 1 year and you never returned our calls. And so, I mean, it really like, it must be really at the right time in the right place, as usual with everything.
Good. Thank you very much, Francesca. I will now pass the ball to Susanna for the next guest, but please stay here and we are happy then to create a conversation among the guests. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll mute myself.
Okay. Here we are. So hello, everybody. So now we are moving to the second guest. Actually, it's not one, it's more than one. So we have here with us, and it's a great pleasure to have Manuel Muccillo and Irmandi Vicacsono. I hope I spelled the name correctly. I don't know if Valentina Sumini is here. She was supposed to join, but she also had another important event going on. So I haven't really checked if she managed to be here, but anyway, it's a great pleasure to have you here. So Manuel Muccillo is product and user experience designer, and he is involved in Space Human project. He was actually the co-author as well, and he is now working as experience consulting for PwC. And Irmandi is PhD candidate at the MIT Media Lab, and especially at the research environments. So since we were working on this, project dedicated to future trends, we had the chance to discover your project, and in particular, Space Human. Which is actually a soft robotic prosthetic for space exploration. So I would like to get to know a little bit why you started with this whole project, and also how you decided to develop it in this specific way. So I would like to have a little bit from you an overview on how you developed the concept and how you also explored it in terms of functionalities and experience.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me here, and it's a great pleasure for me to be here. Now I no longer see the picture that was displayed before, but you should have added also the model, because it was me on the picture that I was actually wearing the garment, and so the prosthetic. So yeah, as you say, the project started with we were trying to explore how in future plausible scenarios of the human activity on Earth, like a great migration would happen again, as it had already happened in the past. In a speculative way, we try to figure out how the human that are right now starting to colonize the space with the ISS. We have like a unique, is a one of a kind environment in which humans are actually living. That is this floating space station that is going around the planet Earth, and so how the perspective changes when you are actually living in an environment that is not the planet Earth. So by doing so, we were, in a first step, we were trying to figure out how the environment around us would have changed. So how the perspective changes when you are in a completely different environment. So what we did is we processed all the steps that are being taken from the space exploration with NASA and other companies. And we saw that they try to adapt the object that were actually useful on Earth. They adapted this object to the space, and so adding stretching things or kind of like those. But then I have this a glimpse in my mind. Like I realized that something that we are not actually evolved, and we are not actually adapted for living in a condition like that. So how the paradigm changes in this environment. So our body itself is designed to answer to the gravity, the laws of gravity. So how you can actually, how your body has to adapt itself to this new environment. So we started by studying the Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci, and how actually the body proportions are designed in a gravity environment, and how these changes in an environment where your body is a point into the space where you don't have your references. So the gravity is our reference. We have our bottom part, the top, the left, and the right, and we experience the world through our body, following the force of gravity. This is pushing us on the ground. And so what we have to add in an environment when these forces fell down, and so this kind of prosthetic was actually an additional, a supernumerary robot that we try to add to our body to have a better experience of the whole environment that is surrounding us. So how it works, you don't have to take care. I was listening before that they have that take care that the wearable devices that you have on your body actually weren't to the weight was proportionate to be carried by our body. In a microgravity environment, you don't have this kind of problem. So you can carry all the weight with you, and that would just simply follow your body. But so we actually designed this as being air chambers made of silicone with a ridge on its side. And by inflating this soft robot, it would have bend following the environment, and also the body positioning itself into the environment. So how actually this prosthetic is another arm or another hand, or actually is a tail. So we started by observing how in the floating environment, like in the seaboard, we have the seahorses, and how the seahorses actually experience the floating experience underwater, and how they grasp themselves to the surrounding environment, and how they actually grasp objects and they can carry with their body through the tail itself. So the tail of the seahorse is not made for swimming, but it's actually made for grasping. So we try to switch this paradigm of the undersea environment to the floating experience that you have on a microgravity environment. It could be the lunar gravity, the Martian gravity, or the ISS, where you have microgravity. And that's what we did. And the result was the Space Human project that we conducted together with Valentina Sumini, that she's not here. I can tell you, she just wrote me that she would not be able to join us.
I'm not gonna make it, it's fine.
Together with the Space Exploration Initiative inside the MIT, where the Space Exploration Initiative is focusing on how the human colonies and in the outer space and in on the lunar or on Mars will actually adapt themselves for living. So it's a combination of different projects, and we came up with the idea of Space Human. So I hope it's a very complex project. So I wish I was able to condense it in this simple explanation.
Yeah, you managed perfectly. And so no, it's super interesting and super visionary as well. And so we were also wondering, we deal with fashion. We deal with fashion design, and in particular, we're from Politecnico di Milano School of Design, and we work in fashion. So we were wondering, from your perspective, how do you think fashion will evolve together with this? So you design prostheses, okay? So it's not necessarily something like a garment, but it's something that stays on the body and goes together with the body. So how does this will evolve? How does these prostheses and these functionalities will be going together with fashion in a way?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this like for a while. And actually, what I think that I constantly wear every day is my skin. Like my skin is the larger organ that we have on our body. And I do believe that fashion is always like in enhancing the human body, how you can actually enhance the human body. So I've heard that people actually, how you show yourself, like the non-verbal communication that you do is important, how you actually look like. But on the contrary, what we can get from fashion itself. So, and in this paradigm, I do believe that enhancing the sensing of the surrounding environments is the key for, like, also for the fashion to collaborate with your body and your brain and your perception of the surrounding environments. So how actually the wearable things or the closet or whatever you want to englobe into the field of fashion can actually enhance your everyday experience into the society. So like communicating is one of these things, and how through your skin you can actually be sensible and how you can actually perceive what's happening. So like even it's like, you know, superheroes. We can be superheroes in this perspective. And I do believe that fashion has the key, and you can get actually access to this like shifting paradigm of the everyday life and experience with others, even building connection with others. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. So thank you very much, Manuel. Again, I hope to have you here still for the whole conversation. So since we were talking about ambience and the relationship of body and garment with fashion, I would like to introduce our third guest, Anouk Whipwet. I hope she can hear me and she's here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Anouk. So nice to have you here. Super. So welcome. So Anouk is a bit difficult to describe her because she's very many things at the same time. So she's definitely an engineer. She's also a designer. She's an artist. So this is Anouk. So she works, of course, in the field of wearable technologies, of robotics, with a specific focus on behavioral aspects of the interactions of body-based electronic design. So she has collaborated with different companies, such as, for example, Intel, but also Autodesk, Google, Microsoft, Swarovski, Le Cirque du Soleil. So different companies from very different fields. And she researches and develops how our future wardrobe would look as we continue to embed technology into what we wear. So welcome here. So I would leave you I would pass you the ball to present yourself. And what we are wondering and what we would like to get to know from you is, how do you think it is possible to experience spaces and interact with other people in a different way thanks to clothes? So this is what we would like to address with this short lecture, let's say.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, hello everybody, and thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, so a little bit what Francesca from Cute Circuit already said. I'm also one of the ones like starting early in 2000. There was nothing much in the beginning. we had to do with big computers and big computers on our body. So you create a design that looks nice from the front, but you turn around and there's this big computer on your back, sort of, you know. And it was also a time that there were not too many girls in fashion neither, in fashion and technology. So I think, like, yeah, looking back on the last, so 15 years or so, electronics really got smaller. And that got me to work with a lot of like cool sensors over the years, over the last 12 to 15 years of work. And my sensors are two kinds. One kind is sensing the environment. So I'm using infrared, I'm using ultrasonic rangefinders, I'm using thermal sensors, I'm using all kinds of sensors to sense the space around me. And I'm also trying to sense the body itself. So I'm using EEGs, I'm using brain signals, EMD, muscle contraction, galvanic skin response, respiration, heart rate variables, so the volume and the rate of the heartbeat, and many more sensors that you can connect to the body. And then I work that into designs. But then my problem is that my designs are very engineered, they're very technical. So how to explain that in an easy way, almost, sort of back, you know. So I'm using architecture and design and 3D printing and the style and the fashion aspect overall in order to interpretate these designs and to put that research back on the body, but also in a way that it's semi-understandable, of course, for people to see as well. So one example is my robotic spider dress, in which I sense the spaces around the body, so the intimate space, the personal, the social, and the public space that we have around the body. This is the proximity of Edward T. Hall in the 60s. You can read his book, The Hidden Dimension. It's a little bit an old theory, sort of, but I took his research on these spaces, and he was measuring that with a stick. And what I did was, I'm using ultrasonic rangefinders in order to measure 25 feet, sort of, you know, so I can see exactly who's coming into my space and where they are in front of the design. So when somebody enters this personal space, my spider dress is reacting, and it's reacting in something that I call 12 states of behavior. So depending on where you are in front of this design and your interaction with it and the speed that you're walking up, it recognizes this and it's reacting in different ways, more aggressive, less aggressive, more enticing, and all of that stuff. So it's really about behavioral elements of this design, and also about sort of the notion of biomimicry, but especially like behavioral aspects in animals. You know, how do animals defend themselves? How can you project that to humans? Because we always create robots that look like humans, but I'm interested in the robots that look like animals, you know. So there's a lot in that. So my background is fashion from the start. When I was 14 years old, I started with couture and tailoring. So really learning how to construct garments, women clothing. When I was 17 years old, I got into interaction design and also into robotics. And that was really important for me. And from that, I work on dresses, I work on prosthetics, I'm working on exoskeletons. I make my own art. I make my own art with companies, my own research. And I also work with companies in where you don't see what we're doing because it's behind the screens or it's embedded in a product. And the other thing that I do is I always say 1/3 my own work, 1/3 for working for the companies, and 1/3 educational and open source. I'm a big fan of the open source movement. I try to do whatever I can there. I go to makerspaces, I give talks, I get girls into technology, kids into electronics and all of that stuff, because I think open source and education is also a really big part of what we do as engineers or as artists or architects or whatever we are, sort of, you know. So yeah, that's a little bit my my little trick down of what I do.
No, it's super. So we met a couple years ago. So I'm wondering from you also, you know, in relation for like what happened in the past 6 months, a year. How do you think, let's say, this scene has changed and is moving and evolving? So, for example, we talk about garments as a way of a facilitator of communication, no? So, what do you think how do you think this is changing also in regards of, for example, what is happening with social distancing and all this sort of environment, let's say?
Yeah, I think a lot. You can see a lot of cool things in the open source community from the start. People creating their own masks for like the first responders and all of that stuff. I think also like definitely my research in like spaces, the spaces around how to sense that, how to sense humans, how to sense temperature. I have a lot of like requests for that. I have a lot of projects going on. I made a personal project, which is this one here. I got a bit sick. I'm in Florida in the United States. And when I was in the park and in public spaces, people kept coming close. I created this dress. It's a proximity dress with an ultrasonic rangefinder and mechanic hip parts. So when people come into my space, the dress is going up and it creates really a physical boundary. And for me, it's like not only about creating that boundary, also about the communication. I can say, okay, people are like, hey, what's happening? And I say, well, you're coming too close right at this moment, you know. So for me, it's all about, the interaction and also, facilitating that kind of dialogue or that kind of communication as well. But of course, also, fashion is there to express us, to communicate us. So how can we use smart, like sensors in smart ways? Almost, you know.
Yeah, super. Okay, and thank you very much. So yes, stay here though. I mean, because it would be nice. Also, we are asking people to write questions in the chat. So so it's nice to have you here, and thank you very much for your contribution. So now we'll leave the word to Lydia to present our next guest.
Well, thank you, Susanna. Sorry, we are in the same space, so we have to shift one microphone to the other. So our next guest is Jasna Rockgem, founder of Jasna Rock, the first fashion tech design lab in Belgium. Jasna, you here?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello and welcome.
Hi.
Thank you very much for being here. For those who don't know, Jasna is an award-winning pioneer combining innovative fashion and cutting-edge technology. She is the founder of Jasna Rock, that, as we said, is the first fashion tech design lab in Belgium that was created to reconcile advanced technologies with interactive fashion. And she has many partners globally to work in that field of fashion tech. Jasna, welcome, and I would like to start with you with a question, because if we Google Jasna Rock and we go into your website, the first thing that we see is we prototype the future. What do you mean with this very strong caption?
Hey, first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's super nice to be here because, of course, education in fashion tech, it's so important. And I'm also happy to see a lot of all my other colleagues like Anouk and Francesca, and to discover also new people in the field. So thank you very, very much for hosting this event.
Happy to do it and to have you here.
Well, Jasna Rock, it's a lab that creates speculative concepts for future applications. And indeed, what I really love to do is I like to make the future tangible and comprehensible for a larger audience. And because also what Annick already said, you know, if an engineer makes something, it will work, but it will look big and ugly. If a fashion designer makes something, it's beautiful, but it doesn't do anything. And if a scientist does something, there is like a research and a paper. But if you bring all this together, you can do much more things. You can create new experiences, and a lot more people will understand it, because fashion is an ideal interface to showcase the future on. And I believe that fashion actually can offer unique and very personalized experiences to all of us, augmenting us as people, also adding new functionalities, and enabling communication on previously unknown levels. So I've started immediately when I graduated. So for me, it was like only, I think, 2 years ago that I really realized that all the projects that I did, they have one theme in common, and it's like it's emotional intelligence and empathy. That's where my heart really beats for. And so, 3 years ago, I started researching new ways of empathic communication as part of my artist in residency at Nokia Bell Labs. And I've mainly have been using EEG and voice as a sensor or an input to detect emotional states, and then make it visual by using wearables, by electronics, prototyping, soft robotics. I think what's maybe interesting to tell is my latest work, because it's also related to one of the previous projects. My latest work is called Reconnect. And it's the first emotional intelligence garment that works in that way that you just have a really tiny microphone. And just by speaking like we are doing right now, we can detect in which kind of emotional state you are. And then we translate that emotional state through making it visible. For instance, there is a special color here. And if you are angry, the color will blow up around your neck using pneumatics and soft robotics, making sure you can say anything you'll regret later on. But also notifying the other person like, hey, stop, it's been enough, here you could just cross the line. So we're mainly using visual and haptic feedback to create a new nonverbal language. And one of the use cases is space. So I've been collaborating with NASA over the last 2 years because I think it's very interesting to see how space exploration has a huge impact on our daily lives, like the GPS, the phone, even the milk that we give to little babies. It all comes from there, So it's really interesting to see how our life just looks different with space innovation. So 2 years ago, I had a talk with the CTO of NASA asking him like, hey, what do you do with spacesuits and mental well-being? Because astronauts, they're also human beings. They are stuck in a little space together. Sometimes they don't even speak the same language. And I think now with the COVID-19, we've all experienced a lockdown. We've all been isolated. I mean, a hug shirt like the one of Cute Circuit, it's something we all want to have right now because we lost people. We cannot see each other, we cannot touch each other. So I think even there personally, the world of fashion tech is evolving even faster, and it's becoming more important because people really understand now that it's important what we do here. That's also why I'm so happy that you hosted the event. So yeah, I mean, we started to explore how spacesuits and wearables could look like in the future and how they could communicate with each other in a non-verbal way. And that's how Reconnect evolved. And then in February, we flew to the Museum of NASA to exhibit it there. And yeah, after that, we all went in a lockdown. So it has been a very challenging and interesting time.
Yasna, from our observation, also in the educational field, usually happens that there are super futuristic and avant-garde scenarios in the field of fashion, but just in the face of the concept. Then moving it from a concept to a real product, it is super difficult in a way because of the limits of the technology, but also for doing something sellable on the market. From your experience, which is the process to move in a winning way these projects from the concept phase until something that really could work?
Okay, well, I developed my own methodology. Everybody can check it out on our website. It's the website is Jasna Rock, and then if you go to services, at the end of the page, we have our own methodology of 5 steps, how we go from a concept to a working prototype. My favorite parts are to really experiment, use different materials, because out of experimentation, mostly coincidentally, you discover new things that you're like, oh, if I combine this and this and this, I get something completely new. And then, in the next stage, for me, the concept is always the most important. And the harder it is, the more fun it is. And then, you realize at a certain point that what you need is not there. For instance, let's say some software or some electronics. Like with the last projects, we really needed pneumatics to make the inflatables. And there we discovered okay, these pneumatics are only made for industrial companies. So they are big, they are heavy, you cannot wear them at all. So there we collaborated with a company in pneumatics called SMC, and they started to tweak, their hardware and their components. And I think, that's also something, is if you cannot find it, then reach out to other industries to see if you can collaborate. And I think I've learned the most from combining our even working prototypes. And then, we get a call or an email from a car tech or from space. And then you have a look okay, what did I make and how can we implement this in other industries? Because I really strongly believe if you combine your expertises across industries, that you can make a much bigger impact on the world, but also that you can go much, much faster.
Yes, this is definitely also the result we had starting from our experience in the education is the same, is not different from the market. Having different competencies and collaborating all together is the only way to really reach the aim of the project. Jasna, since you work on futures of fashion, how do you envision the future of fashion tech making?
This is a really interesting question. I think we're just
to your colleague if they want to participate to the discussion.
I think we are just in the beginning. I mean, there's so many things that we can do here. There's so many things that can be invented. We just started, really. I do have my own personal dream with this. I would personally love to create one garment that rules them all, so that before I die, we only need one garment that can change color, form, texture, and that adapts towards your unique needs and identity. Because of course the fashion industry is still one of the most polluting industries. So as well there, of course, we have very important mission.
Yes, true. And thank you very much, Jasna, for your point of view. Amazing to have you here. And we will go from something really tangible to something else completely intangible with Karina and Ann-Britt of Trashy Muse. Karina, Ann-Britt, are you here? Can you hear us?
Hello. Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Yes, I can hear.
I can hear you too.
Yeah.
Welcome and thank you for being here. Karina and Ann-Britt are the co-founders of Trashy Muse. That is the world's first multimedia brand about moving something that we live as physical completely in digital. So that is why I was mentioning that we are now in an intangible dimension. We will talk about digital world and digital field. Ann-Britt and Karina, welcome. Thank you for being here. I will leave you the stage for briefly introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
So
I just don't see Ann-Britt. Ah, no. Yeah.
can you see me?
Yes.
Ah, hi. Okay. So I am Ann-Britt Muse and Karina Muse. We founded, Treasure Muse was founded by Karina Muse in 2012. And since then we quite much developed. And I think Karina can explain some stuff about us, the first small things, so you can get to know us if you don't know us.
Yeah, so shortly description about us, what we are since the last few years. We are transmedia, multimedia brand, which where our business is not limited by lifestyle, by physical rules, dimensions, and time. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. So our main goal is that we create for our clients and community personalized and immersive customer experiences through technical innovations and digitization. And our main goal and main target group is like generation Y and Z, where we come ourselves from. And we create kind of with Treasure Muse. It's not like a typical fashion brand. It's more like a multimedia platform where we have a department like hybrid publishing, where we create hybrid realities with through virtual spaces, augmented reality communication through Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and we want to be the space for next gen. And we represent like visionary artists of tomorrow who are shaping technologies and culture that are fast becoming today. So yeah, with Treasure Muse, we are like an ecosystem, and by end of this year, we are transforming also to a digital brand, part of our products. Yeah.
So in your opinion, how the experience of fashion is changing and how it will change in the future, since your target is very young, so they will be also the consumer of the future. From your observation and also your work, in which way the fashion experience will change, and how it is linked with the product itself or with something else?
So we first of all think that like everywhere in this fields where we're moving now with technology, it's very important, or the most important thing, we think balance is the key. As with a lot of things, you also when it comes to fashion, it's this combination, the balance between the human body and technology. And we hope, of course, that fashion will always be also in reality, not only all digital. Also, if you're working in that field, but we actually really like this combination of what we have now. Let's make what we have now more sustainable, better with all the technologies we already have. Because I mean, we all know fashion industry is one of the biggest CO2 contributors in the world. We're producing way too much. We burn the stuff, right. It's currently fashion industry. I think it's on the 5th spot of fields that are giving out too much CO2. So this is really, really important. After gas, after agri stuff, gas, and all the things that are really bad for our environment. So this is something we really want to change, and we are not working like the other people in We're not working like the other people directly in this technology field, we are adapting all the technologies that come to us and that are available. And that's what you meant before too. We use it also for communication, and it's also very important to cross fields. We take all these technologies that fit for us and we put them together. So that something new comes out, and that's what we basically want to give a brighter outlook on the future with our platform. And that's what our community is about.
Especially we wanna also show like we see ourselves like a plug-in bridging gaps between like new word and old word, and it's especially for us very important for generation YZ also making clear that it's not only generation gap, it's more like a communication and technological gap. So we want to explore with our platform and our ecosystem, make even technology more understandable for the mainstream. Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. As you mentioned, you say the virtual identity of fashion will not completely substitute the real product. But at the same time, do you think that, as we have seen, fashion shows or retail are moving in digital, do you think that maybe also the consumer can become virtual too? We are especially in the last fashion shows, we have seen many avatar on the show for fashion. So starting from your research and your observation, do you think that it will be a sort of a parallel universe in which not only models and products will be in virtual, but also the consumers?
Yes, definitely. I mean, for us, I think we are already kind of virtual. We don't yet have all these virtual personas completely, like we probably gonna have in the future. Like we had a talk some days ago. There was also a similar question. They asked us if we think that we're gonna have something like an avatar, like walking through the space then. And I totally think that is absolutely something that we're also researching on with our team. And yeah, I definitely think, but we are of course already in a way all digital consumers since we shop online, and there is enough about our persona online, but it's not yet a body like we're gonna have probably in the future. But that's really exciting, because for us that's exactly what we wanted to do. We always wanted to create our own world for like-minded people that have a positive outlook on the future. We have all these tools, we can change things, especially in fashion industry where we are working now, and that's what we want to show. So yes, I definitely hope that we're gonna have the possibility to experience virtuality even better. Yeah.
Yes, it's a tool to better communicate, and totally in a different way. About it, my next question is, we're talking about new way of communication, new intangible product. Do you think that in this field there's also space for new professional figures? What I mean is, also in your team, how are you organized? There's someone with specific competencies that are non-traditional in the field of fashion.
Yes, for example, we also have an artist management. They are also in our team. And for example, Nikita Replansky, he is working since I don't know how many years now, also in prosthesis.
Since 10 years.
Since 10 years, yeah. And what's very interesting now when it comes to fashion, you know, we are working also with augmented reality for our clients and also for art. And Nikita, for example, is making AR, augmented reality masks, but is also then 3D printing it. So you can wear digital items. You can wear it in real life or online, and I think that's really beautiful because you can just change all the time. Also with digital clothing, and that these people are definitely the new professionals in the fashion area. I think 3D graphic designers, CGI guys, people like Nikita and us, that we are with our team combining so many different fields to bring something new out of it. So also avatar influencer, definitely this is going to get much stronger also in fashion. We already have it with Michaela, Shudogram. We also had some at our fashion show in Paris that were running their Shudogram, for example. I don't know if some of you know, it's one of the most, it's basically after Lil Michaela, I think she's the first real fashion model avatar. And I think also these people are gonna become professionals. The new people who create digital creators, AR, 3D, because these people virtually already are influencing a style, and this style is gonna be brought to the streets then, and that's I think that's very shaping trends and shaping culture. Yeah.
Anbrit, there is a question for you in the chat. Are Generation Z young fashion students really digital native or more digital consumers and social media users, but not really digital savvy?
I have to read that again. Mama, what was the question? We're not really digital consumers?
No, you can. I read it too now.
Digital native or more digital consumers and social media users, but not really digital.
Giancarlo, if you want, you can also activate the microphone. Better explain.
I'm not sure if I get the question right.
I simplify the question. Young students from a bachelor program, do you think they're really digital natives, that they can work with digital tools and create digitally, or more, as you said, digital consumers?
No, I think what you see is, I mean, we are already coming from a generation that is digital native, and we see that people our age, and of course the people that are much younger than us, they are growing up with technology. They're growing up with iPads, with iPhones, etc. For them, and we know that's why we're making the work we work, for example, augmented reality advertising, because it's more interactive. Younger people automatically, they have it in their blood. They don't have to learn anything. They don't have to change anything. They just learn it and they live with it. So that's also what we are really for, this balance between human and technology, because technology has become much more in our life. It already is very, very much into our life, but we're gonna have it even more, and it's gonna be much easier for younger people to adapt, of course. Yeah.
As you said, is like especially Generation Z and Gen Alpha, even the younger ones, they already playing, like we see from the PlayStation games like Dreams, and they have all of them from our community have already all the Adobe package, means they are very fit, and it's at the moment in a very playful way. But what we figured out in our community, even teenagers from 14 till 16 years old, every one of them in our community in Trashing is having already their own avatar, where they start even to manage it and doing even digital collections in Close 3D and even in VR chat, other software. So they're already playing around what we figured out, and it becomes in 2-3 years even very professional. So yeah, they're definitely digital natives.
Thank you very much.
Also another ad that I want to bring to that. Gen Z and Alpha, they have millennials and alphas. They have much more natural. Now I don't. What would it? Now I read your question again. I forgot it. Yes, attention span. They are younger people like us. We can say it from the marketing business because we know it. They look at an advertisement and this thing has to click in 8 seconds. They don't have a longer attention span. So that's also very important why we do the advertising for our clients, to make it more special, more interactive, so that people really can experience the brand much better also if they're just sitting at home. And especially with COVID times, this is now a very, very good thing to see. And I have to say, we have it sounds terrible, but since COVID, we felt like there was a jump in the in progress of technology, and for the being willing to adapt to these new things, because they were forced to. And since COVID, we feel this helped us a lot, because the understanding and of the necessity of progress of technology in our life got much more important now. And yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann-Britt, and thank you, Karina, for participating in this conversation. And since, as we mentioned before, we strongly believe in cooperation and dialogue between different fields and how this can enrich the conversation. Our last but not least guest is Liam Young. Liam, are you here? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Great.
And we can see you. Thank you very much for being here, since we have talked very, very much about technology and fashion. So you are the right person to close the conversation, talking about the impact of all this technology on people, on connections among people, since Liam Young is a speculative architect and director who operates in the space between design, fiction, and futures. You are not specifically in the fashion field, but you work a lot with the topic and impact of technology on the society. So Liam, it would be great to hear your point of view, also starting from the conversation that you have heard until now.
Yeah, I mean, what we do with our work is a little different to the conversation that we've had up until now, where a lot of the speakers have been talking about the ways that technology can be deployed to create new aesthetic experiences, like a dress that flashes or that describes moods or helps us communicate to one another, essentially technology augmenting fashion, human-to-human fashion and interactions as a process. Whereas what we're interested in is the world that we're currently in, where actually the dominant eyes that are looking at us and that see the world are not human at all, but actually an array of sensors and scanners, from drones and driverless cars, the sensors of the city. This is now the dominant system through which we see and understand our world. So the image that you had shown when you were doing my introduction is from the cover of a book that we created called Machine Landscapes, which is trying to describe a condition that is pretty much already here, but is certainly going to be rampant across the next 5 to 10 years, where the key inhabitants of our spaces and our cities are actually not human at all. A driverless car, or an autonomous drone, and so on. So what we do in this space is design for these systems. What does a fashion item look like that isn't designed based around how our own fleshy eyeballs see and understand the world, but fashion that's designed for how Lidar scanners, which is the scanning systems that driverless cars use to navigate the world, how they see, like, what does it mean to create a garment or a textile that might do one thing in the visible spectrum of light, one thing to our own eyes, but then creates an entirely different experience when seen through the lens of these machines. For example, we've developed textiles and garments that are designed to be legible to the driverless car, or to camouflage the body from all of these scanning systems that the smart city relies on to operate. So what does it mean to exist as a person in a city where you're constantly being scanned and visualized by countless arrays of sensors? Privacy has fundamentally shifted and changed. So can you create textiles and garments that disguise the body in the same way that a hoodie disguises the body from the way that we see? What kinds of garments would disguise the body from the way that a next generation CCTV camera might see, or how a driverless car might see? They're the sorts of things that we're starting to look at and to work on. Because if you take something like the driverless car, for instance, they rely on a technology called Lidar scanning that I mentioned. And what that is that they understand space by shooting a laser out into the world thousands of times a second. That laser hits a surface, reflects off that surface, bounces back to the sensor, and it can calculate distance and reflectivity and kind of can create this dot in space of what the laser hits. And it does that so many times a second, it creates what we call point clouds, which are these essentially digital three-dimensional scans of an environment. And it does that over and over and over again. And what it's doing is building up a three-dimensional map of space and starting to understand where is a wall, where is a road, where is a person crossing into traffic. And that's the system through which these cars are able to understand the world and then navigate. And this same process of scanning is now starting to replace traditional CCTV cameras, which just rely on, like traditional cameras, they rely on just taking two-dimensional images of the world 24 times a second to create a movie. Now these cameras are shifting into similar scanners, so they'll be creating these three-dimensional scans of our cities. So what we're doing is that we can create garments that interfere with the way that laser scanner reflects off a surface. For instance, we've woven garments with iridescent threads and mirrored fabrics that will bounce the laser in strange ways so that the body in space gets read as a glitch. So to our human eyes, these garments are iridescent and shimmering and are very exuberant, almost like a new kind of couture. But to the eyes of the machine, the body is read as a kind of glitch, or a distortion or a disturbance. So in a way, the body ceases to be able to be identified. You start to disappear. And that's just one example of a whole series of things that we're developing that looks at the ways that fashion trends are now going to start to evolve, not based on the change in natural season or the color of the year, or the way that we see, but fashion trends that might evolve with the next generation scanner update, or fashion trends that might evolve with the development of a new algorithm designed to beat some of the textiles that we've created. So we talk about Moore's law, which is the pace and change of technology. Soon fashion, I think, will follow the rate of Moore's law and developments in data as opposed to the traditional seasons on the catwalk.
And Liam, I've read one of your interview in which you say that you don't like to talk about futures, but it's better to talk about present, since all that we can predict about the future is contained in the present. So what do you see? Are there some specific fields or some changes that are happening right now that, in your opinion, could have an impact, a really strong impact in the field of fashion? You were mentioning some technologies, in a way, the Internet things, so that a technology embedded in the garments in a way are done also to react to the technology that is contained in the environment, but more in a not so specific way, mentioning technologies. There are some stream of trends that you read today that could really have an impact in fashion.
Yeah, again, I think I'm starting to get into it. I suppose is the idea that we